Hey everybody, and welcome to another Magic rant discussion sort of video that been working on for the past weeks. This is kind of like my first scripted remarks or whatever about Magic instead of just kind of reading through and reacting. This was all kicked off by the start of spoiler season for Thunder Junction, so definitely going to be talking about that. If this is something that people are interested in seeing, let me know, because it definitely takes a lot more work than just writing or being mad at something and reacting to it. So yeah, let me know what this is like for y'all, and if it's something you want to hear more of. I imagine some of this is going to be relatively unpopular with, I don't know, newer players or people who aren't Magic boomers, like I feel like I am at this point. But yeah, let me jump into that, and we'll get going with the intro. Let's see, here we go. So, let's see, like last Monday, I think, Outlaws of Thunder Junction spoilers started, and like I am an information shark. I need to absorb information constantly. And so like I'm there on the subreddit every spoiler season, refreshing constantly, checking for the new cards, right? But you know how many times I've been to the Magic sub looking for spoilers since whenever spoilers started? Zero. And somehow Thunder Junction has done what has previously been impossible, even for something like in Unfinity, where I had zero interest in actually playing the set. One day of spoilers completely and utterly destroyed my sense of anticipation and desire to consume content about it. Thanks to, wall of text card syndrome that has spiraled out of control. There's nonsensical flavor and story connections, and just the entire like lol cowboys memes nature that half the set is wallowing in. And then on top of all that, we have the play booster power creep and the not great implications of the whole Wild West genre. Thunder Junction is shaping up to be like the first set since Onslaught where I could open up a pack and not know what any of the cards are going to do, which is wild. That is a wild thing for me to ever say. And even in the past, when I've attempted to not have that be the case, I still broke because I wanted to look at Magic like that bad, and I wanted to know what the cards are going to do. So this is kind of the video where we're looking at why that happened, and I'm going to embrace my full-on Magic boomerdom, and I guess accept that this product isn't for me, and maybe a lot of Magic going forward isn't. So with all of that said, let me get to the thesis of today's video, or not thesis, whatever. The holy cow and the fall of humor in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. And I said, it's just the catalyst that I guess broke the cow's back. And like, I get it. It's fun when there's something to smirk about in an otherwise serious fantasy or sci-fi setting, and numerous franchises have proven that to be the case. And you look at Fallout or Mass Effect or Dragon Age, The Witcher 3, Golden Sun. Like, there's plenty of quote-unquote serious verses out there that have dashes of humor in them to keep it from being such a grim, dark mood. And even super grimdark stuff like Warhammer 40k has goofy stuff in there because it's absurd. Like the and it needs that to counterbalance all of it. And like, if we look at the the early days of Magic, this is from the very first set, there were, like, it was, for all intents and purposes, the Wild West when it came to tone and art styles. Like, there's all sorts of stuff going on in these early sets. You have things like Killer Bees in sets along cards with Segovian Leviathan and Giant Turtle. But when we get to what's going on now, we've got cards that are just references to references with, like, flavor text that has encroached into the reminder text, and it's just, I don't know who these things are for, but it certainly doesn't feel like they're for me. So yeah, like, we've got cards named Killer Bees, and I covered up the art because I'm bad, but it's a bee, it's a bumblebee with a shield and a sword. It's ridiculous. It's patently ridiculous. And it's alongside cards that are completely serious. Even maybe a little bit goofy if you want to look at the little dude on Giant Turtle who's holding an axe. But, you know, like, there's... And this continued throughout Magic. We've got cards like the Beebles and Rank and File, which is, I think, a pretty funny, like, play on, you know, zombies and that expression, along completely serious stuff like Negator and Metatron Elite. We've got Escaped Shapeshifters and Humility showing up alongside Gravediggers and Rootwater Mystics. In 7th edition, we have a Piranha Rabbit. Like, it's... Magic has always had this vein of humor within it, but it's always worked within the confines of what every Magic set was doing. Sure, the art on Escape Shapeshifter and Humility is goofy, but it doesn't feel out of place among the cards like Gravedigger and Mystic. And even the super duper serious villains back then, the Phyrexians, they were illustrated super, super goofy. Like, what are we doing here? They got giant teeth. They've got, like, way too many eyes. They're just like little goobers. They're little goobers, but everything takes them seriously because they are a serious threat within the universe, and they're horrific, but ridiculous. And this is kind of something that you can see in some of the pulpy sci-fi fantasy styles that were common back, like, in the day, as it were. Like, if you look at the original stuff for Dragon Warrior when it came out in the West, or Final Fantasy, like, these are, like, there's a style to these that they have that, even if they're really different in terms of actual execution, they fit together and they work. So, like, one of my favorite joke cards that, like, I just remember back in middle school when I was playing Magic is a card from Odyssey that we would, like, my playgroup and I would just wander around saying, like, it's a werebear, because it's ridiculous. Not this one. This one's bad. This one. This is the proper werebear. He exercises his right to bear arms. It's great. It's a great little... It's fantastic. It's a reasonable thing to be seeing running around Otaria, because Otaria is all about there are, you know, were creatures. There's rats and werewolves and all sorts of stuff like that running around. The mechanics explain what the card does, that it transforms when you get to a certain state. The art is, you know, a little, again, like all fantasy stuff is, kind of ridiculous. It's a humanoid bear wearing some armor, but within the set of Odyssey, it fits. The only humor here is a little flavor text. That's it. It's not in your face. It's just there. And even... And there weren't very many straight up jokes. Like, I guess you could argue that a Togatog in Odyssey is kind of a joke, but, you know, it wouldn't be too long before we got, like, Unhinged, and we'd get things like Toy Boat, which is like a literal joke. And not every unhinged card is a joke on that level, but they provided this outlet to let there be even more levity and overt levity in the game. And everybody, you could choose to engage with it or not. If you were a tournament player or a quote unquote serious player, you didn't have to play with Unhinged. You weren't going to be exposed to it on a regular basis because they weren't for everybody. And the Magic player base kind of signaled that these jokey, overt, in-your-face cards didn't seem to find an audience. People bought Unhinged for the full art lands. And even if you look at the quote-unquote darker sets, like Innistrad, there's still humor in there. Like the Bump in the Night, Feeling of Dread, Just the Wind. You have this overarching lampooning of the horror tropes. And you're also getting those kind of more on the nose names for cards like this as we get into especially these more top down sets where it's a horror set. Of course a horror set's going to have a card named Bump in the Night. It all makes sense within the rules that we're playing with. Like even like New Phyrexia, we got goblins. Goblins are goofy. And they stick to the job they know best, which is blowing stuff up and blowing themselves up in the meantime. You've got Time Spiral, which is an apocalyptic set, and you still have people like Norin the Wary showing up and making not only a joke, but a callback to an original like reference in, I think, Alpha. I don't remember what the original Lemure's card is from, but like it's still there. It's not in your face. It's there for people who look for it, but it doesn't make none of these feel jokey to me. And I think that's where the modern designs for quote unquote black border cards start to break down. And like you can even see it back with stupid Eternal Masters cards. There's no charm. There's no whimsy. It's just a weird art and bad flavor text. Why would you get rid of this for that? Like, what are we doing with our lives? And even modern sets with a dark tone, like War of the Spark, Endgame, Civil War level of apocalypse visited upon Ravnica, and this vampire thinks he cracked a fang. Like, one of the things that I've seen in online discourse about the nature of jokey cards is that the game was getting too serious. That things like Phyrexia All Will Be One were too much of a downer. And it's... I literally just like facepalmed because I I can't handle like that. That whole idea just means that people aren't reading the cards. And part of this might be because Arena has hidden flavor text behind hovering over a card in like a deck builder instead of actually being able to see flavor text. And we don't get vanilla creatures anymore whose text box can be solely devoted to telling us about zombie hippos from beyond the stars. But like, that's not the audience's fault that we don't get those things anymore. And if they're making these overt jokey cards, they clearly think that the audience wants some of this levity, but it never went away. They just stopped treating the audience like they could understand that. And by this time in Magic, at War of the Spark, there had been some changes to, of course, many changes to Magic set design, aesthetics, card borders, all sorts of stuff. And like, we don't have blocks anymore. a lot of the art direction changed, and that subtlety was lost in these cards. If we look, like, this is a sampling of some arts that I just scrolled through Shards of Alara, all from one set. Got pretty good variety of different art styles. We've got some semi-realism, some really like scraggly, not abstract, but just I don't know, like some more sketchy stuff. We've got some painterly figures. Like there's a good variety. These are some legendary creatures from like the past 3 years. I mean, I can look at them and know where they're from because I put these together, but like, what about these sets them apart from anything? It's the same thing. It's just the same. And it sucks. And I hate it. And like we're living in this era where Magic isn't its own thing anymore. It's not its own worlds that they made up. It's just, oh well, this is it's X but Magic. Like, it's murder mystery but Magic. It's Wild West but Magic. It's gangsters but Magic. It's anime but Magic. It's just, and again, like, the market has proven that this is what people want, but it's not something that I particularly enjoy. I miss the days when we'd have sets and worlds like Dominaria as it used to be before it got rebranded as the historical plane. It used to just be a planet with a bunch of different continents and a bunch of different biomes and cultures and races, and they all interacted in a meaningful way. And it didn't have to be like the ice world or the World of Hats thing is one of my biggest pet peeves, and it has manifested in recent years like in a comically on the nose manner. But yeah, this overt nature of set design infects everything. And you know, I was brainstorming this idea with some of my friends who play and who are fellow Magic boomers, and we kind of agreed that it comes down to this lack of trust in the audience. Like, the people designing this game sit in their ivory towers and paint by market research worlds that they have to feed, that they create, that are so blatant because they don't trust the customer to understand what's going on. And like the flavor text line that they added in Dominaria is just the perfect example. Like, were we really having trouble distinguishing between italic text and not italic text in cards? Was that really an issue? I don't believe that it was. And like, one of the recent offenders of this lack of trust is the card Meddlesome Youths. This card is very clearly a reference to the Mystery Inc. gang, or the Scooby Gang, whatever you want to call them. It's a bunch of kids who get a bonus when they do something in a group, and like, sure, great, you got it, neat idea. But it's so it smacks you in the face with its quote-unquote joke, asking repeatedly if you get it. Like, did you get it because Meddlesome Youths is 80% of the way towards meddling kids? Did you get it because the flavor text alludes to the oft-cited unmasking routine at the end of Scooby-Doo episodes? Did you get it because the other flavor text mentions a weirdly smart dog? Or the fact that the kids are wearing approximations of like Daphne and Fred and Shaggy's outfits? Like, did you get it? Did you get it? WotC asks over and over and over again, and it's exhausting. Like, in case it was too subtle, like, we're just living in this world of wacky trademark cards, crap like this. Where is he? Where's my Crocodile? Like, I hate this card. I hate this man. I hate his hat. I hate his outfit, and I hate what it meant in the Murders at Karlov Manor set. Like, I'm not trying to say that you're wrong if you get a kick out of this kind of stuff. I'm just saying that if that's the sort of thing that you like, you deserve the respect of the people making the content, that you'd understand it when it shows up. The conceit of the Scooby card is fine. Murders at Karlov Manor was the perfect set to make that card. And the issue is that the joke has no room to breathe because it's busy screaming in your face. And like with Crocodile, the issue with this guy, this blue-green creature with 3 different types, isn't that the creature it's not that the creature types themselves are ridiculous. They are, like crocodile, elf, detective. It's the whole thing. The Simic Combine is known for making hybrids. This is a guild that brought us Shark to Crab and Galloping Lizrog and Scuttlegator and like all of these super ridiculous things. They're playing in the lighter side of Magic, and they are, spending some of their subtlety points or whatever you want to call them to have a goofy name or a unique creature type combination. But the aesthetics of the cards are all within the world. They feel like they all belong to the same guild. They feel like serious things in the world where they're from. You can have a human lizard warrior, or a snake elf druid, or a fish octopus crab, and everyone's like, yeah, that's Simic. That's cool. Crocodile doesn't have this. He's here to smash you in the teeth with his fedora and his trench coat. Wham! I'm a detective. Wham! I like investigative stuff. Wham! I have wacky creatures. Wham! Look at my hat. It's just... It doesn't feel like something any Simic guild member would touch with a 10-foot pole. And in before Murders at Karlov Manor explores the guild list. Shh. There's very clearly guild-coded people in this set. There are 2 undeniably Simic cards in Vanifar and Pride of the Wholeclad. Like, those are Simic cards through and through. Like Wholeclad or Wholeclade, whatever, is a Simic branch. Vanifar is its leader. Like, Simic is the guild that creates spliced beings. You don't get to be a crocodile elf if you aren't associated with a Simic Combine. And yet here he is, just hanging out, being goofy, because they couldn't let it breathe. It's just a cheap, unsubtle gut punch. And I guess there's a time and a place for that in sets. Like, if he was the only guy in the set that was being weird, it's one of a few, it's fine. But there's just not enough room in the set for this guy, because it's also a set with a card called Private Eye, a weird wearing a hat, like a fedora, a gargoyle wearing a fedora, a fairy wearing a detective hat. We've got devils throwing acorns. Everything is just so on the nose and ridiculous. Like, oh, it's a Sphinx detective. Oh, look at these guys. They're in modern clothes. This vampire has a hat. Everybody's got a freaking, like, detective hat. There's a card called Chalk Outline. A card called Private. Like, it's just every single one of those, like, ha 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 ha, wink wink, nudge nudge, except it's elbowing you in the ribs as hard as it can. And we've been to Ravnica many times. And yes, all but 1.5 of those sets, if you kind of, depending on how you count War of the Spark, were focused on the guilds. But not every creature is a member of the guilds in those sets. If there are so many people on Ravnica wearing trench coats and detective hats, surely we would have seen them sometime prior to this fashion revolution. Right? I grit my teeth and kind of grumbled through MKM with all of this going on. And again, I chalked it up as like, this isn't really for me. Somehow people seem to like this stuff, and there was a pretty involved discussion, I would say, about all of this, the tone of this set, and you can see that in the market research polls that they put out. They are asking people if they thought the set was too jokey, and even the ringleader himself, Mark Rosewater, has admitted that there's probably too many of these stupid detective hats in the set. So, I mean, at least we're getting somewhere with them acknowledging that. I do want to shout out, like, credit where credit's due. Frantic Scapegoat, I think is great. Screaming Goats are funny. The mechanical execution of the card makes sense with the idea of a scapegoat. The art is delightful and whimsical. The humor is in the mechanics of the card. It doesn't have flavor text because it doesn't need it. It's fun. Look at him. He's having a great day. I have a great day when I see Frantic Scapegoat. He's delightful. But just everything else is exhausting. You know, on their own, many of the cards might elicit a groan or a smirk or a chuckle. It's ignorable because they aren't the bulk of the set. They can feel like Easter eggs for the people that they're for. And I'm not even on to Thunder Junction yet. Thunder Junction started, a week ago? And I'll fully admit, I was never going to be the not target audience. Like, what do you call it? I don't know. The Wild West genre has never been something for me. So a lot of the flavor was going to be a stretch, I think, to get me there to begin with. Cowboys don't really have an interesting aesthetic for me. Villains isn't an interesting batch of characters to me. But the same was largely true about Murders at Karlov Manor and its source material, and I at least maintained interest in the spoilers there. So why is this set such a turnoff? And as I wrote all this and whatever, it just came back to this condescending nature of card designs now. Like, there's a lot going on with Magic that I'm not keen on, but this is like one of the biggest ones. Like, you can't have cards that interact with each other and make a combo. The card has to be the combo, because God forbid someone have to work to make their cards do something more than just the sum of their parts. Like, everything is just a combo in a box. Every commander is just your deck right there on the card, and it's got protection so that nobody can interact with you and nobody can get to play an interactive game. And so I'm really just working with just the first day's worth of previews and a few other cards that were brought to my attention by people who didn't know I was already on hiatus from these things. And the like the elephant or ox, as it were, in the room is Holy Cow. This freaking guy. Bam! I hate it. I hate it so much. If you take it all together, what are we looking at? We're looking at a common white flyer with an enters the battlefield effect. It's a 2/2 for 3 with flash, and it makes Windrake so sad. Does the white thing of gaining you life, because I heard there was a Heliod player on Arena crying about how hard it is to gain life, and WotC takes supporting life gain for doing nothing very, very seriously. Its creature type is Ox Angel. Sure, Ox with wings. Like, we don't get to have the creature type cow, so that's what we got. Its name is Holy Cow. You know how sometimes the Magic community agrees on a nickname for a card? There's Tim, Bob, Steve, Primetime, Baby Jace, Death Star, Young Peasy. Like, these all happen for reasons, or for many reasons. A card can get a community like pet name, and they're not always agreed upon depending on your play groups, but they're all neat examples of how a community recognizes something about a card and that thing sticks. And there's no doubt in my mind that had Holy Cow been named something else, Savior of the Cattle, Hope of the Herd, anything, leaving the rest all the same, someone somewhere would have gotten the joke and called it Holy Cow. Because that observation took the barest modicum of a thought process. There's something earned about that name. That then gets shared and goes viral and hashtag trends itself into at least the enfranchised players' lexicon for the card. And just like that, you have a fun card. It's a joke. It's bad and it's dumb, but it's a joke. And the community picks up on it and runs with it. Maybe even some of the flavor text elsewhere in the set can reference a Holy Cow sighting. The point is, naming the card Holy Cow takes that away from the player base. It says, we think you're too stupid to figure this out, so here it is on a plate. And we know that this is the case because Mero himself alludes to the fact in his blog. And this is a quote from his Tumblr. Be aware, there's an alternate universe where we didn't name the card Holy Cow, and I have people mad at me that we missed the obvious name. Either choice makes some players unhappy, so we went with the choice that we thought would make more players happy than unhappy. My poll, here and on Twitter, seems to point towards the fact that we did. And it's just... gosh. I have such a problem with Mero and the way he interacts with people, but he does this incredibly frustrating thing that he loves so much to do on the internet, and he hides behind some unscientific polls and this nebulous idea of market research. And, like, no, WotC shouldn't be sharing all of their market research insights with us, but Mark hides behind that so much that, like, it's a joke between me and my friends when we talk about, like, why did something happen? Oh, well, it's market research in the mocking SpongeBob alternating caps sort of way. Because they just, like, whenever anything happens, like, oh, well, market research says. And even if that market research flies in the face of everything that you see online, and again, online discourse is going to be your enfranchised people, and that's going to be a different subset of the group, but I don't know. There was a lot of stuff out there where they claim market research, and I was like, I don't know about that. And then it just comes in like, why are we catering to people who don't get jokes? Those people aren't fun to be around. Why would you want to play Magic with people who don't understand that an angel ox is a holy cow? Thunder Junction just feels like it was designed with a laugh track. You know who hates laugh tracks? Pretty much everybody. And on its own, this is annoying, it's bad, it's dumb, it sucks. But that card isn't alone. It's the whole dang set, at least from the first day of spoilers, and that's all that I needed. And I have seen names pop up of other cards, and we know from, like, Mero's teaser and everything, some of the names of the cards that are in this set, and it's just like everything in this set is as subtle as a hammer. It's like literally every one of the legendaries that was spoiled on the first day is just shouting like, hey, remember this guy? They're back with a cowboy hat. And you're like, cool. And we get stuff like bovine intervention. Did you get it? Because the ox did it, but no one can know. That's why the card creates another ox. Did the created token do the intervening? Why would an intervening ox turn something else into one of its own? It's like they really, really just wanted to use that name and didn't think about what the card would do. It's just jokes, jokes, jokes. They do it because lulmemez hashtag funny. Like, I just... these suck. These suck to read. It's not great. And this is another example where this could very well have ended up as something like bovine intervention for the community name for it, and it could have been named anything else. You could have even left intervention in it and just found any other word for bovine and let it still be somewhat funny, like have the chance at being funny. But no, we've got loan shark. It's a shark person holding a bag of money. There's no flavor text. I love Wayne Reynolds art. That's great. Mechanics of the card don't have anything to do with loaning another player some sort of research and then cheating them, or a resource and cheating them via repayment. This card exists solely to be that joke. And this isn't unhinged. We don't need a toy boat in a set that's attempting to build up a multiverse and flesh out a new setting and move the current story along. This is a waste of a card for those purposes. It does nothing to build the world. If anything, it's actively detrimental. It's a common. Commons typically have lower word counts and simpler implementations of mechanics, leaving more room for flavor text. And as I was going back through and looking at some of the older cards, it feels like there used to be a lot more flavor text. But the wordiness of cards is a whole nother thing that I originally wanted to talk about in this video, but I'm on minute 35 here, and I'm still on like my first point that I wrote down on my notes. So like, this card has no flavor text. It has a name that is a joke, and it doesn't do anything beyond the barest sketch of an idea that maybe loan sharks have to plot out their scheme to scam people. It tells me utterly nothing about Thunder Junction, its inhabitants, or what we're dealing with. But wait, there's more. Back to the card from the beginning, Shoot the Sheriff. Just in case you thought that jokes were limited to card names and flavor text, we've got Shoot the Sheriff, where there's a joke in the reminder text. And like y'all know, you can see the line, right? That flavor text is in italics and comes after the rules text. And there was, just, you know, apparently that was a really hard when that line wasn't there for whatever focus group of weirdos that WotC talks to when they conduct their market research. Like, that line's purpose is there to tell you in no uncertain terms that the rules text has ended and that anything beyond is extra. Oftentimes, there are jokes in the flavor text. This is where we're accustomed to looking for things like that, unless we're in unset territory. And you know how some cards have rules text, and then an open parentheses, and some italic text, and a closed parentheses, all in the same block of text? That's reminder text. It explains game terms that may need clarification, like how mechanics work on common cards, such as our good friend, I guess, Loan Shark, explaining the plot mechanic. Text put here is a player aid to help understand what a card does. It's not a space for jokes. Sure, sometimes a joke is funny because there's a subversion of expectations. You're reading a card for the first time, reading the rules text, reminder text, and hey, wait a minute, you got your flavor text in my rules text. I don't think it's funny, though. I think it's a waste of ink. It could have very easily been in the flavor text, and they could have relegated the existing flavor text to an alternate border of this if they really wanted to do that, like on Meddlesome Youths. But you don't put superfluous rules text on cards. And yes, that means you too, Questing Beast, with your damage prevention effect. Get out of here. That's just waste of ink. And on top of all that, I Shot the Sheriff is a reggae song and has nothing to do with the Wild West. So why are we relegating reminder text to Joketown? What's the goal here? Like, we have that already in Unhinged, where here the reminder text are jokes, and Unhinged is very clearly the joke set. So why would we take quote-unquote serious cards and make them jokes? If the goal was to get me to tune out, then congratulations, WotC, you managed to do it. And that's saying something, because like, I am who I am, and I love playing the game of Magic, but I hate playing the game that is modern Magic and the discourse and the designs of the modern era. I prefer not being smashed in the face by bad jokes, just because someone who hates reading and then thinking about what they just read can't be bothered to compile the idea that an angelic ox would indeed be a holy cow. So, like, I don't know. It took me, a week or so to pull all this together. The whole set's out now. I haven't looked at anything else in it beyond that first day. I'm aware of some Coyote and Roadrunner cards that have like protection from each other or something. There's Homerids with cowboy hats, because of course there are. There's a heinously Fortnite-ified trailer for the set that just looked awful. I don't know. I'll play a draft on Arena. I'm not spending money there. I'll buy my 1-pack to put into my collection of booster packs. But other than that, like, this is not something that I'm interested in engaging personally. And I felt like maybe, hopefully there are other people who feel that way too. And I'm not saying that Magic shouldn't have whimsy. I'm not here to crap on people who like the lighter tones compared to stuff like Phyrexia and Innistrad and Lorwyn is one of my favorite sets, and it's much lighter in tone than Shadowmoor. I'm just here to say that this era of design that we are in the midst of sucks for me. I'm not a fan of it, but we will see what the future holds. And I mean, I'll try to engage with spoilers when Bloomborough comes out next, but we'll see. I mean, I want to enjoy Magic, but they make it so hard. So that'll be my rant for the tone of cards and the unseriousness of cards and the unsubtlety of cards that are being put out nowadays. If you made it this far, awesome. Thank you so much for watching it. Like I said, it took me a couple days to put everything together and make the 1997 era slideshow. So if y'all want to see more like this, please let me know. Leave a comment. If you think that Holy Cow is the greatest thing ever, let me know, and you can tell me I'm wrong. And yeah, it's still engagement, right? So thanks for watching, everybody. I will catch y'all next time. And until then, take care. Bye-bye.